So, laptop's kind of sketchy right now. This is a video I made, and two people replied. Mike Pills, who the video is kind of inspired by or directed at. Hey, you like my shirt? Take that. Oops. Sorry about that, folks. But, yeah. I like that. Kind of goes cool with the metals. And before people get satanic imagery in here, that is the flag of Argentina. That is the flag of Chicago. Because I know there's some wacky people out there. Mike Pills in the video said that using the Bible to prove Jesus' existence is a circular argument. You should make a video not using circular reasoning. The various canons of the Christian scriptures, let's just say just the New Testament, just to be easy, developed between the mid-2nd century, not even really being finalized until the 5th century, and you can even say, even then, it wasn't until around, the early part of the medieval period that you get a real established 27-book New Testament that would be recognized by everyone. And there were disputed works in there. These were things that were written before anybody had an idea of a canon. And so it's not as if the Bible or the New Testament is a single book by a single author. As I said before, Matthew and the Epistle of James seem to be Judaizers, and you could tell that Matthew did not like what, even though he used Mark as a template, the Gospel Mark as a template, he undid all this kindness to the Gentiles that Christ was doing before the resurrection. And then Luke came in using Mark's template as well as Q, which is the source that Matthew drew from, and tried to kind of defend the ideas of Mark, counteracting the Gospel of Matthew. And then you have John, which is a separate source altogether. So they are perfectly fine to use as pieces of evidence, just as Pliny, Tacitus, Suetonius. Not to mention we have things like the second tier people like Paul, Barnabas, Clement, the Didache, Ignatius of Antioch, Clement of Alexandria I'm speaking about, or no, Clement of Rome, but Pius, who even talks about how Peter had a hand in writing Mark. Then you have, Pliny, Josephus, Tacitus, Trajan, and the Talmud. Third, again, the fact that first century works were a century later adopted by the Western canon has nothing to do with their credibility. They obviously later on these were seen as credible sources. There were 4 of them, and they don't always agree on everything. Sometimes they even have conflicting theology. But how is that not an eyewitness something, or how is that not evidence? This stuff being written down between 15 and 30 years after the crucifixion. All right, in the Bible, this is a Protestant idea that the Bible is just this one book and it's immutable. No, there's Homilegomena and Antilegomena, and then there's the New and the Old Testament. And if you read what the church had believed for the first 1,000 years, and even now in the East, is that not all books have the same amount of weight. The Homilegomena, you can't interpret the Homilegomena via the Antilegomena. Things like Jude, James, 2nd, 3rd John, 2nd Peter, Hebrews, these are not, the people had said these might be forgeries, but Homilegomena always stands higher. Um, just as, the book of Exodus from the Pentateuch stands higher than Second Maccabees. And where does the Bible say it's true? Because the Bible is a collection of books. So what, it can maybe contains one book in there that says that one book is true? What? Oh, and the most egregious thing is, and my favorite is Matthew H. writes, archaeology and carbon dating proves the existence of God? Question mark. How so? Jack Cinnamino replied, Yusuf never said that claim, never made that claim. How you can jump from there was an apocalyptic preacher named Jesus, son of Joseph, or Yeshua bar Yusuf, who walked around and had 12 disciples and was executed, and that we know this from various sources, and his followers believed that he resurrected, and they formed a group called the Followers of the Way that then took on the monitor, or took on the name Christian almost as a slam, and that's where Christianity grew out of. Does not mean that, to jump to that's proof that there's a God. What, just because an apocalyptic preacher lived, denying the existence of Jesus is ludicrous because of the overwhelming amount of evidence. Not even liberal professors, consistent ones, the ones that want to sell books that their scholarly peers roll their eyes at, try to hawk this idea. But no, the Bible is not the Quran. As I said in my old video, I should copy my old Quran. I've also read, the Gnostic works. So being totally illiterate of history, and when I was talking about calligraphy and archaeology, I was talking about the dating of the texts. We have a copy of Mark, about the size of a credit card, writing on both sides, that dates, it's called the Rylands Papyrus. It's also known as P52. It dates between 105 and 125 AD, or AD 105 to 125. That means it's a second generation copy. So, and the Greek on there is pretty much the exact same as the Greek that we use. There was no great adding or subtracting of things. Things that we knew were moved around and edited, which is what church did do that. Is the story of the woman being stoned that was caught in adultery, and possibly the last few sentences of Mark. So these are two people who, one doesn't understand what circular reasoning is, the other thinks that because you can use ancient Roman documents to look into history and find people, that somehow proves God or the resurrection or Christ walking on water, which is ludicrous. This is the madness of the atheists. They will abandon logic to attack Christianity, and you've seen it right here with Michael H. and Mike Pills. And I'd love to hear responses from them or read their comments. I'd love to hear what they have to say about this.